when you repeat things over and over again, they tend to get ingrained into your head. So, I don't know if you're a church guy, and this isn't about religion by any means, but when you go to church, you stand up, you repeat things over and over, and you know these things by heart, and the goal is to get you to live them by repeating them mentally in your head. So I said, well, our core values, I created a creed, a company creed that we say at every staff meeting, and that really ingrained our core values into people's brains. Now, it's also up on the wall. It's also animating on the TV. There's also a video when people apply and they click like work at Zeus's Closet. There's a video where you can watch our core values and we explain them at the forefront. And when we do employee reviews, there's a grading system and you're graded on the core values, and you have to cite specific examples of when a team member lived or didn't uphold the core values. So it's woven into every decision that we make in the company, and I think that is the key.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we look at a different aspect of leadership. In fact, we're going to really dive into the whole concept of inspiring leadership. It's not just about paying them money and really the things that we think it is something else that you want to pay attention to. And today we unpack that with our special guest, Ethan King. Ethan's got multiple companies and multiple things that he's doing. One of them is Zeus's Closet. It's very interesting the way he frames it. It's tattoos for your clothing because they do such custom work. And it really is amazing idea. But we talk about his experience of leadership and kind of how he sees leadership and inspiring leadership across his companies and across the people that he works with. And this really was uncovered in his experience of leading an EO chapter in Atlanta. And it was, working with a lot of volunteers. And he realized that he was treating them with kindness and courtesy and, being humble with them and all of those things. But then he had to reflect and say, well, maybe I'm not doing that as well as I could be with my employees. And he tried it and it was working amazingly. So inspiring leadership is like treating your employees like they're volunteers. So think about that for a second. My name is Gene Hammett. I am here to help you grow your company and be the leader that your people deserve. And I want to help you grow through the executive coaching we do. We also do leadership development for managers and help them become leaders. And if there's anything that we can do for you, please let me know. One of the next steps that I would suggest would be a leadership effectiveness evaluation, which is a way for us to codify and assess where leadership is across your company. How do you measure leadership? Well, it's not as easy as measuring sales and measuring other things. You want to make sure that you have the right dials and you go through the process, and it's a custom experience. It's absolutely free if you're listening to this podcast. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule a call today. The leadership effectiveness evaluation will help you really get clear about where you're performing well and where you could need some focus and attention and the micro adjustments, which you'll find out a little bit later inside the interview with Ethan. Now, if you want to get that, just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call today. And here's the interview with Ethan. Hi, Ethan. How are you?
Hey, I'm great, Gene. Thanks for having me.
We're going to have a great conversation about all things entrepreneurship, and I'm not sure exactly where this will go today because we are getting to know each other. We're both in EO in Atlanta. And just it's exciting to have you on the show and talk about it. Can you give us a little bit of the background of you as a person, but also the businesses that you operate?
Yeah, certainly. So I guess, me as a person, my background is in the arts. So it's probably a little bit different from most of your guests and listeners. Never went to business school. I wanted to be an artist growing up ever since I was a teenager, had my work in exhibitions, and I told my parents that I wanted to be a fine artist as a career. And they told me, artists don't make any money until after they're dead, right? So that kind of made me wise up and figure out how can I apply business to the art realm and my artistic talent and my creativity and actually make some money doing this. So naturally, I went down the route of graphic design first. So that was my first business as a freelance graphic designer. And through a few wayward turns and pivots, we ended up in the apparel industry. We were doing branding for companies, and as part of our brand package, we would do merchandising, and part of that merchandising was designing apparel for these brands like like one of our early clients was Tyler Perry Studios before he had ever made a movie. He was doing plays, so we did all the merchandising for his plays, and apparel was part of that. We did apparel for fraternities and sororities through our company stuffforgreeks.com. And my girlfriend and I started, we were in college. And so we ended up pivoting to just focusing on the niche of customized apparel. And we opened Zeus's Closet. And Zeus's Closet, we're like a tattoo shop of your clothes. A tattoo shop for your clothes. We specialize in very advanced embroidery for the film and TV industry, for clothing lines as a fulfillment partner, for businesses, of course, doing uniforms, for businesses and schools. And it's been, let's see, we opened Zeus's Closet in 2009. We opened another location. We're focusing now on the growing on the e-commerce side more so in a post-COVID world, focusing on that more so than the brick and mortar side of it. But it's been a great run. We've been on the Bulldog 100 list of fastest growing companies 4 times. We just got nominated for a 5th time here, so I'm excited about that. And a lot of what I learned, as we were talking about earlier, is through peer-to-peer entrepreneur groups like EO, like other masterminds that I'm a part of, conferences, books, and talking to smart people like yourself.
Well, I appreciate it. I know that we had met years and years ago. I think I was giving a speech and I mentioned the podcast. You're like, I listen to that podcast.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen as much as I would love for it to. I feel like we have a very niched audience of people that want to be better leaders and want to grow their companies, and it doesn't appeal to everyone, and I get it. But I appreciate you being a listener, but also get a chance to be on the show today.
Yeah, for sure. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Ethan, we could take this in a number of different directions, but one of the things that I'm curious about is being a creative is one thing, and then being asked to develop a company, be an entrepreneur, and take risk, and then you got to take another step with, all right, we're going to hire some people and we're going to create a culture and create a leadership. What have a couple of things that you've learned in this journey of becoming the leader that you are today?
Right. Well, first thing I learned, and it is especially challenging when taking a creative business and trying to scale it. Well, the first thing I learned is find a model. Find another company that you can model yourself after, and it may not be in your sector. We talk about mentors and coaches, but it may be someone that doesn't even know you. So, for example, I said, okay, well, we want to make these highly customized jackets that cost hundreds, even thousands of dollars, even for one jacket. And I want to scale it and sell it online. How do I do that? Nobody's really done that before in our industry. So I looked up Dell computers, because Dell allows you to customize your computers. And of course, they have massively scaled up. They're billions and billions of dollars. So I said, well, how do they do it? And I read Michael Dell's book, and I implemented a lot of the things that he did in his life. So that's the first step, is to draw on mentors from other sectors and don't try to reinvent the wheel. You can apply things to your business that may seem kind of unorthodox, but if they've worked in other industries, they may work for yours as well. Now, when it comes to leadership and leading people and culture, man, that is where I struggled the most. And probably, being around entrepreneurs, I've been doing this for over 20 years now. People seems to be the most challenging part of it. And I was a bad manager starting out. In fact, I remember one of the aha moments for me was, I remember my wife is my business partner, and she was pregnant with our first child. And at the time, we had about 6 employees. And then during the term of her pregnancy, 3 of them quit. So we lost half of our workforce. And it just left me like, what did I do wrong? Because I always, instead of pointing the blame at others, I look inwardly first and say, what's going on here? Well, I was rude. I didn't treat my employees with respect. I was trying to be as cheap as possible and not pay as much as we could have. And that, and it was a bunch of other little things. But I read this book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And that really opened my eyes and helped me improve my leadership style. I learned about core values through EO, and we actually implemented our core values. We put them everywhere. We developed a company creed, and things really did a 180 very quickly, and that revolutionized our culture in our company.
Now, just a moment ago, Ethan said, what did I do wrong? and I'm putting a spotlight on this because he said it's, we could blame others, but he wanted to look at the situation and say, what did I do wrong? So no matter what you're facing, if you've got a people problem in front of you, one technique for you to do is to sit down with yourself and your thoughts and not blame others for not getting it right, not performing at the level you want them to, but be honest with yourself and reflect on that question. What did I do wrong? Or let me rephrase that. How did I contribute to this? What did I do wrong is a great way to understand, but also to use inside of the conversation, because you're taking some ownership of how you've contributed to what's going on and not just blaming others, because that really is a weak position inside leadership. Make sure that you are aware of where you've wronged them, or you are aware of how you've contributed. Now back to Ethan. You mentioned values, and it's one of the most popular aspects, or something we talk about a lot within leadership of fast growth companies. What is your favorite way to live your core values? Is there a specific strategy or tactic that you feel like makes the most impact for the culture of your company?
Yeah, you have to weave your core values in everywhere. I've seen so many companies make the mistake of just coming up with core values and then just sticking them on the wall and never really referring back to them again. And we also made that mistake early on. But what I learned, if you look at culture, even from a standpoint of culture, like in countries, it's represented in different ways. You have different symbolism. You have cultural norms that happen in a society. You have things that come out. So you should have the same thing in your company. And one thing that we do, and actually learned this from church, from growing up in the church, when you repeat things over and over again, they tend to get ingrained into your head. So, I don't know if you're a church guy, and this isn't about religion by any means, but when you go to church, you stand up, you repeat things over and over, and you know these things by heart, and the goal is to get you to live them by repeating them mentally in your head. So I said, well, our core values, I created a creed, a company creed that we say at every staff meeting, and that really ingrained our core values into people's brains. Now, it's also up on the wall. It's also animating on the TV. There's also a video when people apply and they click like work at Zeus's Closet. There's a video where you can watch our core values, and we explain them at the forefront. And when we do employee reviews, there's a grading system, and you're graded on the core values, and you have to cite specific examples of when a team member lived or didn't uphold the core values. So it's woven into every decision that we make in the company. And I think that is the key.
You said something, and this is really meant to be a short clarification. The company creed, you say it at every meeting or just some meetings?
Every staff meeting. So at our weekly staff meeting. We used to do it at our daily huddle, but that got to be a little bit too much. So just at our weekly staff meetings.
Perfect. I know the value of values, and I think a lot of people think it's a little bit fluffy. I don't think it is. I mean, I'm very sure with all of the fast growth companies and the leaders we've talked to, and many of them will say, well, at first we didn't do it, just like you said, or, we didn't see the importance of it. We had them, they were on the wall, but we didn't really live them. But what you just described was 5 or 6 touch points of how you guys are truly aligned and living the values. I appreciate you walking us into that. So we've been talking about, things that you've learned. I know you've also worked with EO. You were president of the chapter. Atlanta's got a pretty big chapter. Tell us about kind of what you learned through that experience of taking a leadership role in a peer group.
Yeah, definitely. So EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, for those who aren't familiar with it, it's a global nonprofit organization, about 18,000 members worldwide in some 75 different countries. And then we have chapters within cities. So EO Atlanta has roughly around 150 members. These are all entrepreneurs who are doing at least $1 million in annual revenue. And then we have a board. It's run by volunteers who are members of the organization. The board has about 30 people on it. These are all busy entrepreneurs who don't have a boss. And leading a group like that is probably grew me more than anything else as far as leadership training could ever happen in my life, because you don't have the power to, when you don't have the power to dangle a paycheck over someone's head or threaten them with firing them, then how do you lead? So I learned to lead through inspiration instead of trying to command people or leading through fear. And so, in order to do that, here are some of the biggest takeaways. First of all, you have to set the vision, have a big vision, make it clear, make it plain, repeat it over and over again, and let it be a vision that everyone gets excited about. And then there also, you need to understand every person's selfish and unselfish reason for wanting to be there. When you have a volunteer organization, a lot of times people will say things like, "Oh, I want to give back to the organization," and all that's true. And I want to help other entrepreneurs grow. Yes, all that's very true. But what's in it for you? That is what I want to know, because I also want to tune into that and give you added value as a board member. Now, all these things I'm telling you, I took them and applied them to my business as well, and that helped me become a better leader of my business. And we have people who've been with us over 10 years, so we have very, very low turnover. We have loyal and awesome team, and it's because I've implemented a lot of these things. And another thing, well, and the last thing from being president of EL that I learned is, when people are volunteers, I noticed that I treated them differently. I respected their time, and even the language that I used when I asked them to do things was very cordial and humble. And I noticed at the time, I wasn't communicating in that same way with my employees, with my team members. And that was kind of an aha moment for me. It's like, well, just because I'm giving them a paycheck, that doesn't really mean anything. I still need to treat them like volunteers, because truth be told, they could go work anywhere else. So treat your employees as if they're volunteering, because in essence, they kind of are.
Now, Ethan's been talking about this, and he said the words, you got to understand what people want. Now, he was talking about the volunteer situation. You want to make sure that you're tuning in to what people want, and you ask them, you really try to understand them, probe for the questions, because there may be some selfish reasons that you're not aware of. And I want to make sure that you don't miss this moment. Your job as leadership is not just to execute on the things in front of you, and visions and values, all part of it. But you want to make sure that you're tuning in to what they care about the most. And you listen, and then see what you can do about it. See if you can align their goals with the company goals or the team goals. That is a powerful move in leadership. Back to Ethan. I didn't expect our interview to go this place. And I really want to reflect back on this, because that's such a powerful lesson to learn. I've had many of speeches, many of opportunities where I'm engaging with someone. They said, well, why do I recognize someone for just doing their job? Why do I pay them? Isn't that enough? And I'm very blunt with them. I'm like, no. And what you're describing is working with someone you don't pay. How do you connect with them, and how do you engage with them? And the humility and the kindness and the courtesy. We should be doing that as leaders, is what you're saying. And I'm just highlighting this for a moment here, because I think a lot of people aren't doing that as leaders. They feel like, well, I'm paying them to do this work. Why don't they just do it?
That's the biggest. I mean, the reason I'm laughing is because I used to say the exact same thing very early in my business career. I would say, well, I'm not telling them thank you. Your thank you is your paycheck. And that mindset is the quickest way to not have a great team behind you. Like, just believe me.
I think it's worth your time listening in here today if you got that. He's like, okay, well, how do I make that shift? I mean, you can ask yourself the question, should I make the shift? But if you really want to be a leader that people want to follow, not because of the paycheck, it's because they want to. And if you're leading an unpaid group of busy entrepreneurs, it's got to be pretty hard. I'm sure at times you felt like it was herding cats and getting people to commit to these things. But I think it's worth the listen here today, just for that one lesson. Thanks, Ethan. I want to give us just a moment here, because you've also spent some time putting your thoughts together. It's not easy to write a book. You wrote Wealth Beyond Money. I like to ask authors this one question. Why did you have to write this book? Not what's it about, but why did you have to write this book?
I had to write this book because it is, in a sense, a letter to the younger version of me who made all of the stupid mistakes. And I want to give younger Ethan the shortcuts, so you don't have to make those same dumb mistakes and take as long as I took to get to where I am. But Wealth Beyond Money is, it's essentially the answer to life balance for busy entrepreneurs who want to have it all, or anyone who has extreme ambition, wants to achieve big things in life. But what we tend to do, especially in American culture, is when pursuing one goal, we neglect the other areas of our life. And there's been too many times when we've heard about people dealing with depression. I mean, did you know that 1 in 3 entrepreneurs deals with some form of anxiety or depression? I mean, we have this American dream of entrepreneurship, yet if it's so great, then why are 1 in 3 of us walking around here depressed and dealing with, and me myself, I was looking back a few years ago at my prescriptions. I was prescribed anxiety meds just not long ago. And I had to re-examine my life and change things. And I live by 6 different dimensions. And if you think about it like this, there are 6 dimensions of success: spirituality, intellect, your money, your physical presence, your love and relationships, and your entertainment. Now, think about it like an airplane. If you look out at the wings of an airplane next time you're on a plane, you'll see dozens of those flaps that are always constantly making micro adjustments to get you safely to your destination. Well, if you think about life across those 6 areas, and instead of trying to balance, which is impossible to do, or what the other approach people take is just focus on one thing and ignore all other things, that can be detrimental. Well, instead, just make micro adjustments across those 6 dimensions, and it will get you to exactly where you want to go. And in that sense, you can have it all, and you don't have to make quote unquote sacrifices to have the success that you want to have.
Very well said. And what plays in my mind too is entrepreneurship isn't just a game of making money and having freedom. It is about inviting others on the mission with you and building a team around you so that everyone can have something. And what we've been talking about today is about, leadership and different perspectives and different elements of your life, what you've learned. And I think this book, from what I'm taking on this, is, it's really important to pay attention to all those little things that matter and to really not necessarily balance it all at one point in time, but those micro adjustments are just being aware so that you don't wake up one day and realize that your health is gone, or you wake up one day and you don't have anyone around you to spend your life with.
That's right.
I think a lot of people look back at that. I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but we can look in the news and whatnot, and people who are, divorced many times over, and all the stuff that's going on with them. And I wouldn't trade my life for theirs, for sure. I even though I make a lot less money. But Ethan, I really appreciate you being here, talking about your perspective of leadership. I'm going to give you a chance to kind of close the moment here. If you were talking to a younger entrepreneur that was building a team, what would be the lesson that you want them to really stick in their head as they move forward?
If you're building a team, first of all, make sure that you're working with people who you like and you want to be around, because you're going to be around these people for a long time, especially if you're building something big. And then make sure that you clearly communicate the vision to them of where you want this thing to go. Because if you don't have a vision, you're not leading. Where are you leading people? You have to be leading people towards something, and you need to be able to clearly articulate that. And then lastly, as you build your team, make sure to take care of them. Tune into what's important to them. It's not always money, sometimes it is, but tune into what is important to each one of your team members in their lives and go all in to improve them in those areas, and you will win.
Well said. We'll leave it at that. Ethan, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Gene. Good talking to you.
Wow, I love this interview. The insight that came out of that, treating employees as their volunteers. That really is about inspiring leadership. And I'm really happy to bring you this idea. We didn't know exactly how we would get to this topic today, but I feel like it was well worth your time. And if you're listening to right now, if there's any way we could help you continue to grow and continue to be the leader that your team deserves, just go to genehammett.com and schedule a call today. That leadership effectiveness evaluation is a powerful tool and a great next step. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, live with courage. We'll see you next time.